First contact amid the flames. The deep space vessel Horizon cuts silently through the void, its advanced engines humming with quiet efficiency as it conducted its mission along the outer boundaries of the Perseus arm. Captain Alina Reyes sat in her command chair, dark eyes scanning the daily reports, while her crew worked diligently at their stations. 3 months of surveying uninhabited systems had yielded nothing beyond routine scientific data. "Captain, I'm detecting an anomalous signal," Lieutenant Marcus Chen called out suddenly, his voice breaking through the ambient hum of the bridge. Very faint, but definitely artificial in origin. Reyes set aside her tablet and moved to his station. "Show me." Chen's fingers moved across his console with practiced precision. It's repeating on a cycle of approximately 87 seconds. The pattern is too complex to be random stellar noise. The screen displayed a waveform that pulsed with mathematical precision. Reyes studied it with narrowed eyes. After 15 years commanding deep space missions, she had developed an instinct for distinguishing the significant amid the routine. "Distance?" she asked. "Based on signal degradation, approximately 3 light days from our position," Chen replied. "It's coming from a system not on our charted survey route." Reyes turned to her navigation officer. "Lieutenant Okafor, plot a course." "Lieutenant Chen, continue monitoring that signal. Try to decode it if possible." As the Horizon altered course, excitement spread through the crew. First contact protocols were reviewed, and the ship's xenolinguists prepared potential communication algorithms. The signal grew stronger as they approached its source, a yellow-orange star with 11 planets. "The signal originates from the 5th planet," Chen reported. "Terrestrial, approximately 1.2 times Earth's mass. Atmosphere is thin but breathable. Surface shows signs of advanced civilization. But," he paused, frowning at his readings, "something's wrong. I'm detecting massive environmental degradation. The planet appears to be experiencing catastrophic geological instability." Reyes ordered the ship to establish orbit around the troubled world. The main view screen showed a planet in crisis. Vast cracks ran across continental landmasses. Several active supervolcanoes spewed ash into the atmosphere. Once great cities lay in ruins. "Life signs?" Reyes asked. Science officer Dr. Amara Osi checked her instruments. "Yes, but clustered in underground structures. Approximately 12,000 individuals concentrated in the northern hemisphere. The signal is definitely a distress beacon," communications specialist Jackson added. "It's broadcasting on multiple frequencies. They're trying to reach anyone who might be listening." Reyes ordered a closer approach and dispatched scanning drones for detailed surface analysis. The reports confirmed their worst fears. The planet's core had become unstable. Within months, perhaps weeks, catastrophic tectonic activity would render the world uninhabitable. "Prepare a landing team," Reyes decided. "We'll make contact and assess the situation." The shuttle descended through turbulent atmosphere, landing on a relatively stable plateau near one of the underground settlement entrances. Reyes led the team herself, along with Medical Officer Dr. Kai Sato, Security Chief Commander Diaz, and xenolinguist Dr. Imani Kozi. They wore lightweight environmental suits as a precaution against the planet's deteriorating conditions. As they approached what appeared to be an entrance, the ground trembled beneath their feet, a minor quake, but a reminder of the planet's failing health. "Movement ahead," Diaz warned, hand moving to his sidearm. Tall, slender figures emerged from the entrance, beings with luminescent teal skin and large almond-shaped eyes that seemed to capture light like prisms. Their bodies were graceful with elongated limbs and delicate features. They wore simple garments and carried no visible weapons. Dr. Nkosi stepped forward with the universal translator, but before she could activate it, she gasped and stumbled backward. "Doctor, what's wrong?" Reyes asked. There in my head," Nkosi whispered. "I can feel them. Thoughts, emotions, so clear." Reyes steadied herself, hands open in what she hoped was a universal gesture of peace. Nkosi nodded, apparently responding to something unspoken. "They want us to follow them underground," Nkosi translated. "Their elder council wishes to speak with us." The team followed the aliens, who had communicated to Nkosi that they called themselves the Luminary, through winding tunnels illuminated by soft teal lights embedded in the walls. The underground complex was vast, but showed signs of strain. Cracks in the walls, makeshift repairs, and overcrowded living quarters. Children with the same delicate features as the adults watched the humans with curious, iridescent eyes. The council chamber was a simple circular room where 9 elderly luminaries sat in a semicircle. As the humans entered, Rice felt a gentle pressure against her mind, not intrusive, but present, like someone standing close beside her. Through Nkosi's translation and the luminaries' telepathic projections, their tragic story unfolded. Once masters of a civilization spanning dozens of systems, the Luminary had been a peaceful race focused on art, philosophy, and mental sciences. Their natural telepathic abilities had made conventional communication technology largely unnecessary among their own kind. But those same abilities had drawn the fear and aggression of the Krell Dominion, a militaristic species that viewed telepathy as a threat. Over generations, the Krell had systematically hunted the Luminary, destroying their colonies and forcing them back to their ancestral homeworld. "Why didn't you fight back?" Rise asked. The eldest Luminary, introduced as Elder Vera, projected images of their history. The Luminary had never developed significant weapons or military technology, believing cooperation would always prevail over conflict. When the Krell attacks began, they had appealed to other spacefaring races for help, but fear of Krell retaliation had led to their abandonment. "We are the last," Nkosi translated as Elder Vera's mental voice filled her mind. "When our world dies, so too will our kind." The burden of salvation. Rise listened as her officers provided updates on the planet's condition. According to their calculations, the core instability was accelerating. Complete planetary failure would occur within 7 weeks. She stepped away from the council to confer with her team. Earth fleet protocols were clear about non-interference in alien conflicts, but this was different. This wasn't about taking sides in a war. It was about preventing extinction. "If we leave them here, they die," Dr. Sato stated simply. Security Chief Dias was more cautious. "We don't know if bringing them to Earth space might attract these Krell to our doorstep." Reyes considered the options. The horizon could accommodate the survivors, but they would need somewhere to go. Establishing contact with Earth Command would take days given their distance from the nearest relay station. A violent tremor shook the chamber, sending dust cascading from the ceiling, a reminder that time was running out. Reyes returned to the council. "My ship can evacuate your people," she said as Nkosi translated. "We can't promise permanent sanctuary until our government approves, but we won't leave you to die here." Elder Vera rose slowly, her fragile form seeming to straighten with hope. The mental impression she projected needed no translation, profound gratitude mixed with cautious optimism. Back aboard the horizon, Reyes called her senior officers to the conference room. "Begin evacuation protocols," she ordered. "We'll need to convert cargo bays for temporary quarters. Medical, prepare for their specific needs. Communications, draft a message to Earth Command, explaining our situation." As the officers dispersed to their duties, Reyes remained alone in the conference room, staring at the image of the dying planet on the display. She had just committed her ship and crew to a refugee mission that might have far-reaching consequences. But watching the luminary children being safely brought aboard hours later, their prismatic eyes filled with wonder at their first glimpse of the stars without the filter of their failing atmosphere, she knew she had made the only choice she could live with. "We're bringing them home," she said softly to herself, "whatever home might be." The first days after the luminary came aboard the horizon were filled with tension and uncertainty. The ship's corridors, designed for a crew of 200, now held over 12,000 refugees. Every available space had been converted to temporary housing, cargo bays repurposed with sleeping mats, observation lounges transformed into communal areas, even some larger maintenance corridors sectioned off for families. Dr. Nkosi, the ship's chief xenolinguist, worked tirelessly to establish meaningful communication. The universal translator, designed to analyze speech patterns, struggled with the luminaries' primary mode of communication. Their spoken language was basic, used mainly for simple interactions with non-telepathic species they had encountered in their past. It's like trying to understand a symphony by reading sheet music, Nkosi explained to Captain Rice during their third daily briefing. We're getting the notes but missing the emotion, the context, the actual music. The luminary seemed equally frustrated. Elder Cian, who had emerged as their primary representative, often sat in silence during meetings, her large eyes blinking slowly as if waiting for understanding that never came. The breakthrough happened by accident during a particularly difficult session. Nkosi had developed a severe headache from the strain of attempted communication. As she rubbed her temples in pain, Elder Cian had reached across the table and gently touched her hand. The ship's security detail tensed, but before anyone could react, Nkosi gasped. Her eyes widened, and for several moments she sat completely still, hand connected to the luminary elder. "Doctor, are you okay?" Rise asked, concerned. When Nkosi finally spoke, her voice was filled with wonder. "I can hear her. Not with my ears, in my mind." She looked directly at Elder Cian. "They don't just communicate telepathically among themselves. They can connect with other species who are receptive." "Receptive how?" Rise asked. "Emotional openness, I think. When I let my guard down because of the pain." Nkosi trailed off, still processing the experience. "Captain, it's remarkable. Their thoughts carry images, emotions, entire concepts in an instant." Over the next few days, Nkosi worked with other crew members who volunteered to attempt contact. They discovered that approximately 35% of humans could establish at least basic telepathic connections with the luminary. Those who succeeded described it as suddenly understanding a language they hadn't known they spoke. Minds bridged, worlds apart. In the ship's conference room, Dr. Nkosi presented her findings to the command staff. "They'd been trying to connect since they came aboard," she explained, "but most of us instinctively block unfamiliar mental contact. It requires a willingness to be vulnerable." "Is it safe?" Security Chief Diaz asked, voicing the concern many felt. "From everything I can tell, yes," Nkosi answered. "They don't read thoughts against our will. It's more like opening a channel of communication. Both sides control what they share." Through these mental bridges, the full story of the luminary emerged. They had once been part of a loose confederation of species that traded knowledge and culture across dozens of star systems. When the Krell Dominion began their expansion 3 centuries ago, most races had chosen submission over conflict. The luminary, whose telepathic abilities made them impossible to fully control, became targets instead. They were abandoned, Nkosi explained after a lengthy mental exchange with Elder Cian. Former allies turned their backs when the Krell threatened retaliation. Despite their mental abilities, they never developed weapons, Dr. Sato observed. Their culture valued harmony above all else. "That's admirable," Lieutenant Okafor said, "but dangerously naive in a universe with predators like these Krell." "They're aware of that now," Nkosi replied sadly. "But cultural change takes generations they haven't had." Despite improved communication, distrust lingered on both sides. Many crew members avoided the areas where luminary gathered, uncomfortable with the idea of beings who could potentially read minds. The luminary, in turn, kept to themselves, their prismatic eyes watching humans with a mixture of hope and wariness. Elder Cian remained the most skeptical. During her mental exchanges with Nkosi, she repeatedly expressed doubts about humanity's intentions. "Your kind speaks of rescue," she projected, "but what will you ask in return? All help comes with a price. We have learned this lesson painfully." Nkosi tried to reassure her, but words, even mental ones, weren't enough. Actions would need to speak louder. The opportunity came sooner than anyone expected. 7 days into their journey toward Earth space, the ship's long-range sensors detected a vessel following their course. Configuration unknown, Lieutenant Chen reported. But it's big, at least twice our size, and it's accelerating toward us. Time to intercept, Rise asked. At current speeds, 18 hours. Elder Cheyenne arrived on the bridge minutes later, her usual calm demeanor replaced with visible distress. It is the Krell, she projected so strongly that several crew members winced from the mental pressure. They have found us. They will destroy your ship to eliminate us. How could they have tracked us? Diaz demanded. Images flowed from Shan's mind to Nkozi's. Luminary technology embedded in their ancient homeworld, devices that had gone dormant but reactivated during the evacuation. We did not know, Shan communicated. The tracking beacons were planted generations ago. They activate when many luminary gather in one place. Rice faced a critical decision. The Horizon was a survey vessel, not a warship. Its defensive capabilities were limited to basic shields and point defense systems, adequate for protection against space debris and minor threats, but not designed for combat against a military vessel. Options, she asked her officers. We could try to outrun them, Navigation Officer Okafor suggested. Push our engines beyond safety parameters. That would buy us maybe 10 additional hours, Chief Engineer Patel responded. After that, we'd be dead in space when the drive core fails. We could jettison escape pods, Diaz said quietly. Give the Luminary a chance while we... No, Reyes cut him off. We're not abandoning them. The captain stared at the tactical display, mind racing through possibilities. The nearest Earth outpost was still 4 days away at maximum speed. No help would arrive in time. Elder Xian approached Reyes, her slender hand extended. If I may, share. Reyes hesitated only briefly before nodding. The mental contact was gentle but clear. Xian was sharing knowledge of Krell vessels, their strengths and weaknesses, information gathered over centuries of painful experience. Their forward shields are strongest. Nkozi translated as the information flowed. They focused defensive power there, expecting direct confrontation. Their sensor array is located on the ventral hull, a vulnerability they protect through intimidation rather than design. A plan began to form in Raya's mind. Bold, desperate, but not impossible. Chief Engineer Patel, I need the shuttle's engine modified. Lieutenant Chen, reconfigure our communication array to emit a focused pulse on these frequencies. She transmitted the specifications to their consoles. Dr. Nkozi, ask our guests if any of them have experience piloting vessels. We need volunteers. As her crew rushed to implement her orders, Reyes turned to Elder Xian. This will be dangerous. I can't guarantee success. The luminary elder's response came not in words, but in a wave of emotion. Determination tinged with the bitter memory of countless defeats, yet underlaid with something new, something that felt remarkably like hope. The hunters become the hunted. 16 hours later, the Krell warship loomed in their sensors. It was massive, its hull bristling with weapon emplacements. Its design favored intimidation, jagged protrusions, and blood-red illumination that stood out starkly against the darkness of space. They're hailing us, Communications Specialist Jackson reported. The main screen flickered to life, revealing the Krell commander. Humanoid in basic form, but with thick, gray-scaled skin and small eyes set deep in a heavy-ridged forehead. When he spoke, his voice was a harsh rasp that the universal translator rendered in staccato phrases. Human vessel, you harbor fugitives. Surrender the luminary, or be destroyed with them. Captain Reyes stood, her posture calm despite the threat. This is Captain Elena Reyes of the Earth Alliance vessel Horizon. The beams aboard my ship are under our protection. We will defend them. The Krell commander's laugh was a guttural sound. Your ship, not designed for war. Our scans show this. You have 1 hour. Surrender the telepaths, or die with them. The transmission cut off. Charming fellow, Dr. Sato remarked dryly. Status of our modifications? Rise asked. Shuttle is ready, Engineer Pottle reported. We've replaced the standard engine with a jury-rigged pulse drive. It won't last long, but it'll give the burst of speed we need. Communication array conversion is complete, Chen added. We can generate the pulse, but we'll need to be within 5,000 kilometers for maximum effect. Reyes nodded. And our volunteers. Dr. Nkosi gestured to 3 luminary who stood quietly at the back of the bridge. Tarek was a survey pilot before the Krell destroyed their scientific outposts. Lyra and Zivan were part of their deep space observation team. They understand the risks. Very well. Rise activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is the captain. In 30 minutes, we will engage the Krell vessel. All non-essential personnel report to the Central Core. Emergency protocols are now in effect. She turned to the luminary volunteers. If you would prefer to withdraw, now is the time. What we're attempting has never been done before. Tarek, the tallest of the 3, stepped forward. His mental voice reached not just Nkosi, but everyone on the bridge. A carefully controlled projection. For centuries, we have fled. We have hidden. We have watched our worlds burn. Today, we stand with you. Reyes nodded, throat tight with unexpected emotion. Take your positions. We begin in 20 minutes. As the final preparations were made, Reyes reviewed the plan one last time with her officers. It was deceptively simple and terrifyingly dangerous. The modified shuttle, piloted by Tarek and carrying Lyra and Zivan, would launch during a brief window and the horizon executed a rapid deceleration maneuver. The sudden change in momentum would create a sensor shadow that might conceal the smaller vessel's departure. The shuttle would then swing wide and approach the Krell warship from behind, while the horizon engaged it from the front. When the shuttle reached optimal position near the Krell's ventral sensor array, the 3 luminary aboard would coordinate a concentrated telepathic assault on the Krell crew while the horizon transmitted the electromagnetic pulse designed to temporarily disrupt their ship systems. The timing has to be perfect, Reyes emphasized. Too early, and they'll detect the shuttle. Too late, and their weapons will tear us apart. The plan relied on 2 unproven assumptions: that a coordinated telepathic attack could disorient the Krell long enough to matter, and that their ship would be vulnerable to the specific electromagnetic frequencies Shan had identified from ancient luminary encounters. Is this what Earth Alliance captains usually do on first contact missions? Dr. Sato asked with a grim smile. Improvise desperate battles against overwhelming odds. Only on Tuesdays, Reyes replied, returning the smile before turning serious again. This is far beyond standard protocol. If anyone wants their objection officially recorded, now is the time. No one spoke. Very well. Reyes checked the chronometer. Launch in 5 minutes. Take your stations. The Horizon's engines suddenly reversed thrust, the ship shuddering under the strain of the emergency maneuver. On the tactical display, they watched as the tiny marker representing the shuttle detached and swung away in a wide arc. Krell vessel is adjusting course to match our deceleration, Lieutenant Chen reported. Weapon systems are powering up. Hold position, Reyes ordered. Let them come to us. The minutes stretched like hours as the massive warship grew larger on their view screen. Weapons ports slid open along its hull like awakening eyes. They're charging main batteries, Security Chief Diaz warned. Impact in 30 seconds. Shuttle status. Approaching optimal position. 20 seconds to mark. Reyes gripped the arms of her command chair. Shields to maximum. Prepare to transmit the pulse on my mark. The Krell ship fired. Energy beams lashed out, hammering the horizon's shields. The vessel shuddered violently, warning lights flashing across control panels. Shields at 60%. Diaz called out. Second volley incoming. Shuttle in position. Chen shouted over the blare of alarm klaxons. Now, Reyes commanded. The light of defiance. Aboard the shuttle, Tarek held the small craft steady as Lyra and Zivin joined hands, their minds linking in preparation for what would be the most powerful telepathic projection their people had attempted in generations. On the Horizon's bridge, Elder Sheehan and 5 other luminary elders formed a similar circle, their consciousness reaching out to join with their kin on the shuttle. The combined mental force struck the Krull ship like an invisible tidal wave. Though the Horizon's crew couldn't perceive it directly, they saw its effects immediately on their tactical displays. The Krell vessel's firing pattern became erratic, its movements sluggish. "Now," Rise ordered. Lieutenant Chen activated the modified communication array, a tightly focused pulse of electromagnetic energy, calibrated to the exact frequencies the luminary had identified as disruptive to Krell systems, struck the warship's ventral sensor array. The effect was immediate and devastating. The Krell ship's external lights flickered and died. Its weapons fell silent. It began to drift, rotating slowly on its axis. "Direct hit," Chen exclaimed. "Their primary systems are offline." On the bridge, the luminary elders collapsed, exhausted by their mental exertion. Medical teams rushed forward to attend to them. "Shuttle status," Rise demanded. Returning to dock, Okafor confirmed. "All aboard are alive, though the luminary are showing signs of extreme fatigue." Rise allowed herself a moment of relief before turning to Dr. Sato. "How long before the Krell recover?" Based on what Elder Sheehan shared, the combined telepathic assault and electromagnetic pulse should keep them disoriented for approximately 30 minutes. Their secondary systems will begin to restart in about 20. "That's our window." Rise turned to her communications officer. "Open a channel to the Krell ship." When the connection was established, the view showed chaos on the Krell bridge. Emergency lighting cast red shadows over officers struggling to restore control of their vessel. The commander was shouting orders, his earlier arrogance replaced by barely contained panic. "This is Captain Reyes," she said, her voice level. "As you can see, we are not as defenseless as you believed. We could destroy your vessel now, but that is not our way." The Krell commander turned toward the transmission, his small eyes narrowed in hatred and disbelief. "Your systems will begin to recover shortly," Rise continued. "When they do, you will find that we have transmitted a message to your ship's computer. It contains the coordinates of 3 uninhabited star systems suitable for the luminary to establish a new homeworld, all well outside Krell territory. It also includes a warning." She leaned forward, her voice hardening. "The luminary are now under Earth Alliance protection. Any future aggression against them will be considered an act of war against us. Our full response would be considerably less restrained than today's demonstration." The Krell commander started to speak, but Reyes cut the transmission before he could respond. "Set course for Earth Outpost Gamma 9, maximum sustainable speed," she ordered. "We need to put as much distance between us as possible before they get their weapons back online." As the Horizon leaped forward, the bridge crew erupted in cheers and relieved laughter. They had faced an enemy that had terrorized the luminary for centuries, and they had won. Dr. Nkosi helped Elder Sand to her feet. The luminary leader was weakened but conscious, her prismatic eyes fixed on Reyes. "For 300 years," she projected, her mental voice reaching everyone on the bridge, "we have known only flight and fear. Today, you gave us something we had forgotten. You gave us hope." The journey to Earth Outpost Gamma 9 took 3 tense days. Though their sensors detected no pursuit, Reyes maintained combat readiness, uncertain whether the Krell would honor the warning or gather reinforcements for a more determined attack. During this time, the relationship between humans and luminary transformed. The shared victory had broken down barriers on both sides. More crew members volunteered to learn telepathic communication, while the luminary began earnestly studying human language and customs. "They're calling you the shield bearer," Dr. Nkosi told Reyes during their daily briefing. "In their culture, it's one of the highest honors, one who stands between the vulnerable and harm." Reyes brushed aside the praise. I did what any Earth Alliance captain would have done. Did you? Nkosi raised an eyebrow. You risk your ship, your crew, and your career to save a species you'd known for less than a week. That's not standard protocol, Captain. Before Rice could respond, Lieutenant Chen interrupted. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Outpost Gamma 9. Admiral Zhao requests to speak with you immediately. Rice straightened her uniform. Put him through. Admiral Zhao's stern face appeared on the main screen. Captain Rice, I've reviewed your preliminary report. You've created quite the diplomatic situation. Sir, the luminary were facing extinction. The Krell. Save it for the official inquiry, Captain. Zhao cut her off. Then, unexpectedly, his expression softened, which, by the way, will likely end with a commendation rather than a court-martial. Earth Alliance Command has reviewed the sensor logs you transmitted. Your tactics against a superior enemy force were impressive. Relief washed over Reyes. Thank you, sir. As for your passengers, Zhao continued, temporary asylum has been granted pending full diplomatic discussions. We're preparing accommodations on Gamma 9. The xenobiology and diplomatic teams are eager to meet them. Sir, I'd like to formally request that Dr. Nkosi lead the initial diplomatic exchange. She's established the strongest telepathic connection with the luminary leadership. Zhao nodded. Granted. I'll expect you both in my office as soon as you dock. He paused. One more thing, Captain. The sensor echo you detected leaving the Krell vessel as you departed. Our analysts confirm it was a long-range communication drone. They've likely already reported to their high command. Understood, sir. Be prepared for turbulence ahead, Captain. Zhao out. A new dawn for ancient stars. Earth Outpost Gamma 9 was originally constructed as a scientific research station, later expanded to serve as a diplomatic waypoint for newly contacted species. Its vast biodomes and modular living quarters made it ideal for housing the luminary refugees. The aliens emerged from the Horizon's shuttles with wide, wonder-filled eyes. For many, especially the children, this was their first time setting foot on a world other than their dying home planet. The station's artificial gravity was slightly stronger than they were accustomed to, giving their already graceful movements an ethereal floating quality. It's strange, Dr. Nkosi commented to Captain Rice as they watched the luminary explore their new temporary home. A week ago, we didn't know they existed. Now, I can't imagine our future without them. Rice nodded, understanding exactly what Nkosi meant. In the short time since the rescue, the luminary had already begun sharing remarkable insights with their human saviors. Their advanced understanding of neural patterns had helped the medical team develop treatments for previously resistant neural disorders. Their artistic expressions, songs created directly in the mind, had moved hardened security officers to tears. They have so much to offer, Rice agreed. If only we can keep them safe. The meeting with Admiral Zhao and the Earth Alliance Diplomatic Corps was tense but productive. Earth's leadership was divided on how to proceed. Some saw the protection of the luminary as a moral imperative, while others worried about provoking a new and powerful enemy. The Krell Dominion controls territory spanning 17 star systems, Security Admiral Nguyen pointed out during the briefing. Their technological level is at least equal to our own, and their military resources far greater. We must consider the strategic implications. With respect, Admiral, Rice countered. We've already demonstrated that their technology has vulnerabilities. The luminary's telepathic abilities, combined with our own technical expertise, provide a tactical advantage they won't expect. Elder Vera, representing the Luminary Council, rose to address the gathering. Her mental voice, now familiar to many in the room through the communication techniques developed aboard the Horizon, carried both humility and dignity. We do not ask for others to die in our defense, she projected. Throughout our history, we have sought harmony, not conflict. If our presence brings danger to your people, we will seek our path elsewhere. Admiral Jove studied the luminary elder thoughtfully. Your people possess abilities unlike any we've encountered. Some would see that as a threat, others as an opportunity. What guarantees can you offer that these abilities won't be used against us? Vera's response came not in words, but in a carefully controlled emotional projection. Absolute transparency, allowing the assembled humans to feel the luminary's core cultural values. It was a profound gesture of trust, opening their innermost ethical framework to scrutiny. The room fell silent as the experience washed over them. When it ended, many of the military officers looked visibly moved. "I believe," Admiral Zhao said finally, "we have the beginnings of understanding." Over the following weeks, a plan emerged. The Earth Alliance would help the Luminary establish a new colony on Proxima Centauri, a terrestrial world only 4.2 light-years from Earth. The proximity would allow for mutual protection, while giving the Luminary the independence they needed to rebuild their civilization. In return, the Luminary would share their knowledge of telepathic communication and help develop new defensive technologies against potential Krell aggression. A formal alliance would be established, with cultural and scientific exchanges at its foundation. As preparations for the colonization mission began, Captain Rice found herself increasingly drawn to the Luminary's vision of the future. Their perspective, simultaneously ancient and innovative, challenged her own understanding of what interspecies cooperation could achieve. "You seem troubled," Shieldbearer Elder Xian observed one evening as they walked through the station's central gardens. The Luminary had taken to Earth plants with unexpected delight, particularly drawn to flowering species. "Not troubled," Rise replied. "Thoughtful. Your people have suffered so much, yet you remain committed to peace. I'm not sure humans would be so forgiving in your position." Xian's mental response carried a complexity that spoken language couldn't capture, something between amusement and profound understanding. "Your species judges itself too harshly," she projected. "We have observed your history through the memories you've shared. Yes, there is violence. But there is also something rare in the galaxy, a capacity to extend protection beyond your own kind. When the moment of choice came, you did not hesitate to stand for strangers. It was the right thing to do," Rai said simply. "Precisely." Xian stopped to touch a blooming rose, her slender fingers tracing its petals. "The right thing, regardless of cost or consequence. This moral certainty, this is humanity's shield. It is what the Krell will never understand, and what they will ultimately fear more than any weapon." As the colonization fleet prepared for departure, Earth received the response they had been anticipating. A Krell diplomatic vessel approached the outer system, requesting negotiations. The meeting took place aboard a neutral station in high Earth orbit. The Krell delegation, led by High Commander Drovax, radiated cold hostility behind a veneer of diplomatic protocol. "The telepaths are a destabilizing influence," Drovax insisted. "Their mind powers violate sovereignty of thought. The Dominion cannot permit such a threat to exist unchecked." Admiral Zhao remained impassive. "The Luminary are now allied with Earth. Their colony falls under our protection. Any action against them will be considered an attack on the Alliance itself." Drovax's scaled skin darkened with anger. "You do not understand what you're protecting. When they enter your minds, when they change your thoughts." "They do not change thoughts," Dr. Nkosi interjected. "They share them. There's a fundamental difference that your people have never attempted to understand." The negotiations continued for days, eventually resulting in an uneasy truce. The Krell recognized the Luminary colony's right to exist under Earth protection, while the Alliance acknowledged Krell territorial boundaries. Neither side was fully satisfied, but open conflict had been averted for now. Humanity's shield unfurled. 6 months after the rescue mission, the Luminary settlement on Proxima Centauri had grown from a collection of prefabricated structures to a thriving community. The planet's rich mineral deposits and mild climate proved ideal for their needs, while its proximity to Earth ensured ongoing protection and cultural exchange. Captain Elena Reyes stood on a ridge overlooking the main settlement, now named Novaterra. The architecture blended luminary aesthetics with practical human engineering, graceful spires rising alongside functional habitation domes, all bathed in the reddish light of Proxima Centauri. "It's beautiful," Dr. Nkosi said, joining her at the overlook. "I never imagined we'd come this far when we first picked up that distress signal." "None of us did," Reyes agreed. "How are the integration programs proceeding?" "Better than expected. 53% of human personnel have now achieved basic telepathic reception. The children are especially adept. They learn the mental techniques in half the time of adults." The sounds of construction echoed from the valley below. Earth Alliance engineers worked alongside luminary designers, building what would become the first joint defense installation. Its primary weapon wasn't destructive power, but rather a massive communication array designed to amplify telepathic projections across vast distances, an early warning system unlike any in known space. "Admiral Zhao's shuttle arrives in 2 hours," Nkosi reminded her. "The Luminary Council is preparing something special for the ceremony." Reyes nodded, checking the time. "I'll be there. I want to visit the memorial garden first." She made her way down a winding path to a quiet section of the settlement where crystal formations emerged from the soil in geometric patterns. Each crystal contained a preserved memory. Luminary lives lost during their long persecution, their stories now preserved for future generations. At the center stood a different monument, one dedicated to the 3 luminary who had piloted the shuttle against the Krell warship. Though they had survived, the intense telepathic effort had permanently affected their neural patterns. They now served as advisors to the Council, their experience against the Krell deemed invaluable despite the personal cost. Elder Vera approached silently, her telepathic presence announcing her arrival before any physical sound. "Reflecting on sacrifice, Shieldbearer," she projected gently. "On choices," Reyes corrected, "and their consequences. The history of all sentient species is written in such choices." Vera gestured to the crystal garden. "For too long, our choice was only to hide and survive. Now we build instead." The dedication ceremony took place at sunset. Admiral Zhao, now appointed as Earth's first ambassador to the Luminary, stood before the assembled crowd of humans and aliens. "Today marks not just the completion of a defense installation," he announced, "but the beginning of a new chapter in galactic history. Where others saw difference as threatening, we have found strength in diversity. Where others chose fear, we have chosen alliance." As he spoke, a group of luminary elders formed a circle at the center of the gathering. They raised their slender arms, fingertips touching, and closed their iridescent eyes. A wave of mental energy swept outward, not the forceful projection used against the Krell, but something entirely different. The humans present gasped as their minds filled with a song without sound, a harmony of thought and emotion that transcended language. It carried images of countless stars, of civilizations rising and falling across ends, of the fragile beauty of consciousness itself adrift in the vast cosmos. And running through it all, a new thread, humanity's unique contribution to this ancient tapestry. Not perfection, not even peace in the luminary sense, but something the telepathic species had nearly forgotten. Defiance against impossible odds. The willingness to stand and fight when retreat seemed the only rational choice. The shield raised not just for oneself but for others. When the projection faded, many were weeping openly, regardless of species. The gulf between human and luminary consciousness had been bridged, if only for a moment, revealing a shared future greater than either could achieve alone. Captain Reyes found herself unexpectedly moved. Throughout her career, she had explored the unknown reaches of space, but never had she felt so profoundly the purpose of that exploration until now. Later that evening, as celebrations continued throughout the settlement, Reyes stood with Admiral Zhao on the observation deck of the new installation. The stars shone brilliantly above Proxima Centauri's clear atmosphere, and among them, the small blue dot of Earth. The Krell have been increasing patrols along the border, Zhao informed her. Intelligence suggests they're developing countermeasures against telepathic interference. Are they likely to attack? Rise asked. Not directly. Not yet. But they've been spreading rumors among other species, trying to isolate us diplomatically, claiming the Luminary have mind-controlled humanity into serving their interests. Rise laughed softly. Anyone who spent 10 minutes with both species would know that's absurd. We're barely compatible enough to communicate, let alone control. You and I know that, Zhao agreed. But fear is a powerful motivator. The Krell understand that better than most. He turned to face her. That's why Earth Command has approved your new assignment. Sir, the Horizon is being refitted as we speak. Upgraded weapons systems, enhanced shields, expanded crew quarters. When it's complete, you'll take command of our first joint human luminary exploration vessel. Reyes's eyes widened. A mixed crew. Precisely. Your mission will be twofold. Continue our exploration initiatives, but also serve as a diplomatic mission to other species in the sector. Show them the truth of our alliance. Demonstrate what cooperation between different types of consciousness can achieve. The implications were enormous. A ship crewed by both telepathic and non-telepathic beings, exploring the stars not just for scientific discovery, but as living proof that diversity could be a strength rather than a threat. The Krell's greatest weapon has always been isolation, Zhou continued. They convince species that differences are dangerous, that the unknown is to be feared. Your ship will be the counterargument, living proof that there is another way. Reyes felt the weight of the responsibility, but also the rightness of it. The Horizon had found the Luminary by chance, a dying people broadcasting one last desperate plea to an indifferent cosmos. What other voices might be out there, waiting to be heard? What other alliances might yet be forged? When do we depart? She asked. 3 months. Time enough for crew selection and final preparations. Zhao handed her a data tablet containing the mission parameters. This won't be easy, Captain. You'll be charting unknown territory, not just in space, but in how different types of minds can work together. The best explorations never are easy, sir. Rise took the tablet, a smile spreading across her face as she thought of the journey ahead. But they're always worth it. As the celebration continued below them, human and luminary voices mingling in shared songs and laughter, Rise looked again to the stars. Somewhere out there, the Krell Dominion plotted, other civilizations struggled, and countless voices called into the darkness, hoping for an answer. This time, humanity and the Luminary would answer together, two profoundly different species united not by shared biology or common history, but by a simple, powerful choice, to stand as shields for one another against whatever the universe might bring. It was, Reyes thought, the most human thing imaginable, and perhaps, in the end, the most luminary as well.